Hello, welcome to Property Space. We are very thrilled to have you, Chris, today. Chris is from Settio Property, and a big warm welcome to Malaysia.
Thanks so much, Shelvin. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. It's great to be back in KL.
How many times have you been here?
Quite a few times over the years. Yeah.
Have you tried the king fruit of Malaysia? The king of the fruit in Malaysia. The durian.
The durian.
I'm gonna buy you some today.
A long way away.
But let me just highlight this. It's actually a very special occasion for us for this episode today, because that will be our first time featuring a lettings and management expert like yourself on our podcast. So we are very excited to dive into your insights and your expertise in this industry. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that are quite frequently asked by our audience. I'm going to put them together into 5 questions today as one episode, and there will be another episode later on. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, hopefully you have some easy questions and some tougher questions.
Let's see.
And but most importantly, hopefully we can educate a number of your investors and your community around you.
Definitely. So questions are very meaningful. It's nothing too heavy. It will be a lot more related to the general market at the moment and the sentiment. So first question, before we bombard you with serious questions, Chris, perhaps you can do a quick introduction of yourself, your company, to our investor community.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So this is probably going to show off my age a bit, but I entered the real estate market in 2009.
Same year.
Same year.
With a batchmate. 2009. Yeah, into UK scene. Yes.
And look, at that stage, I entered as a property manager working the London property market. And what was amazing, so I grew up in South Africa, moved to London, and then got thrown into the international property sector as a property manager, looking after a portfolio of 100 properties in London and fixing all sorts of stuff. And then over the years, I got into contact with a lot of our landlords who are from Singapore, Malaysia. So I've been traveling back and forth to KL and Singapore for quite a few years, and Hong Kong. And then I moved out to Asia permanently in 2015 with the same previous company. And what I noticed was that there was a big gap in the market for quality service, quality communication, an easier way to operate.
Okay.
But at the same time, there was movement in prior to 2015, 2016, the market was dominated by London.
Yes.
And over those years, it was awesome because Manchester and Birmingham offered investors a different option.
Yeah.
London prices were very expensive. It's a great place to invest,
Correct.
but Manchester, Birmingham provided a second option.
More affordable options.
More affordable options.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And something different, something more, not more exciting, but exciting. And that's when Samuel Fitzhugh and I had a chat, and I was asking him about what was happening in Manchester in 2016, 2017. And then we decided to break away, be entrepreneurs, and give it a go ourselves. And
very brave. Because I remember...
This is where the hair losses come from.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester market was not as vibrant back then. I remember being quite quiet between 2012 to 2017. I think it's the same year you formed the company.
Yeah.
There weren't lots of projects coming up. I think it was a very quiet 5 years at the point in time. We did market something, but I think it's not within the city centre. So I think for you to come out, break out from London scene into Manchester was a very brave move, but that was the best decision in your life, I suppose.
the
best decision. Yeah.
We ate lots of baked beans and cans of tuna over those years. It wasn't easy.
I'm sure.
But from our very first landlords from 2017 all the way through to this year, we employ 40 staff. We help 1,400 landlords with their properties from Manchester, London, Birmingham.
Amazing numbers.
And what I think Sam and I are most proud of is that we try our hardest to maintain the highest service standard we can in the industry. Obviously, we need to. It comes with challenges with staff and continuously trying to hit those high bars that we set for ourselves. But yeah, I think we are proud, but there's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot of hard work to maintain those
I think
standards.
Manchester market have just taken off. I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
being really, really robust, and there's a construction boom going on in the Manchester city scene right now. So, good time to make business.
Yeah,
very good time.
Because it's been so awesome to see what's happened in the city since 2017 to 2024. You know, the restaurants and the bars that have moved to the city.
Yeah.
The tenant demographic has changed. Fortunately, that step that we made in 2017, we can say it was a brave one, but it was a right one.
Yeah.
You know, back in 2017 when we were leaving our previous jobs, we were told that we were committing
It must be a scary time, right?
career suicide. They
Yes,
called it.
career suicide.
But you know,
Yeah.
we
I feel
dug
you.
in.
I had that before.
But that was it, and we sit here today with a good company and landlords behind us that we defend and help in the market and hold their hands.
That's a very
Yeah.
good sharing. I think property management is a very demanding job. Truly, because I took on the course before and then we went through all the job scopes and duties and responsibility, and what you guys doing out there, it's just nothing short of amazing, because you take care
thank
of
you,
not
Chauvin.
just the local landlords but also the overseas landlords who may have a lot of uncertainties over how an overseas agent would look after the property. There's a lot of like barriers or misconceptions which we'll address later on. But of course, now we're going to dive into the technical questions. We're going to dive into your insights, professional insights.
Of course.
So,
Happy to help.
So second question is related to how your team work as professional property manager. So how do you do the hand-holding journey with a new landlord? For example, myself, I've got one unit in London, completion in 2 weeks' time. How do you make sure that I will have a seamless completion, snagging, and then how do I get my rental? How do I get a quality tenant? If you can walk through the process with us, that would be superb.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the one aspect for an overseas owner, wherever you are outside of the UK, is something called the time difference.
Oh yes, my
the time
God.
difference.
Look at my
is-
dark circles.
Yeah, dark circles.
Talk to
we
UK
work
all the
all
time.
hours, right?
Ah, yeah. Oh yes.
Look, and when you don't hear from a property manager or someone who's working in the UK on your asset for a day or two, the anxiety level starts rising, right?
Yes.
So one of our main points that we address with the teams is communication. When a landlord reaches out, reply. Even if you don't have the answer yet, reply.
Yes.
So
Response. Just be responsive. Yeah, just respond.
Yeah. There's so many examples of clients that we have helped who haven't heard from their property agent for like 5 days, 10 days.
Oh yes.
And you can imagine
Very common story actually.
So you're saving for us. It was brave to go into the UK market and to start the company in 2017. But it's very brave for an owner to enter the UK market. It's a good market to invest in, but you do have to be brave.
Yes.
So a lot of our processes are tailored around overseas owners. It's from the very start of addressing us, meeting the client, providing confidence that our team are going to hold the client's hand from instructing us, helping with the various processes prior to completion of the property, or when we potentially taking over
What
from
sort of
another
timelines
agent.
you're looking at? What do you recommend? Like how long prior to completion that you should have this dialogue with the landlord?
It should be, in our opinion, 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Because yes, we need to do non-resident landlord applications. We need to get furniture packs in place, which can be done relatively quickly. The non-resident landlord process takes about 6 to 8 weeks. That's not our processing time. That's the government's processing
the
time.
HNR. So yeah. That's
Very
right.
slow, in my opinion.
Understood.
Yeah.
Happens the same here.
But it also helps us as a company weigh up how much we need to get resourced. Do we need to employ new people? So it really helps us put our company in a good position. From that point to the property completing, we've got a completions team who will help the owner or the new client with the snagging, and then
So they will
update with
reach out to
photographs.
the customer team from the developer side and then arrange for the key handover.
Exactly. So we'll ask our owner to send an email
to
or
authorize you guys
to authorize us to do the handover.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We will do the handover on behalf of the client, so inspect the apartment, complete something in the UK called a snagging list, which in layman terms is a defect check.
Correct.
Is everything perfect?
Yes.
Anything that's not perfect, we'll put on a list and we'll submit to the developer in order for the developer to rectify.
So there will be a full-fledged snagging report.
Yes.
Submitted to
usually
developer.
with a lot of the developers that we work with are quality, and the snagging list is very short, 1 to 10 items.
Good to hear.
Yeah, in the we have worked with developers where there's a longer snag list, but our team is there to address all these items for the owners.
And usually, what sort of window we are looking at between the actual snagging time and then the submission of the report?
That's very quick. That'll happen on the same day.
Oh, absolutely.
And then in terms of rectification of the defects, that can take anything I don't know what that period of time is because it differs with what tradesmen have to come in and what timelines they're working with. So that's largely out of our control.
Okay.
But our team will go to site, do the snagging list, come back with some photographs from their phone and update the owner. And what we aim for is to update same day or next day to say, dear Shelvin, congratulations on your completion. We've done the inspection. Here's some photographs from your apartment. We've plugged in the furnishing company. They will install on the next date. And so the owner... again, managing that anxiety level, being like, okay, my property is in okay hands.
Anxiety. I mean, I like this word because we all have that. We just don't want to say it. We just say, I'm getting a little bit concerned, but that's actually anxiety.
Look, it's an expensive asset that you spend a lot of money on in a different country.
I think it works a bit different from Malaysia. I think for us, like as a local Malaysian, if you have a properties in KL, for example, and you go for a handover, and then what you need to do is you're going to do it yourself. But you are not a property surveyor. You don't even know if there are defects. You'll be like, oh, that looks fine. But if you go into details, you will know that maybe there are some cracked lines over the wall. That maybe the doorknob is not functioning well. But you just don't know because you don't have the professional knowledge. So it works a bit different. But that being said, I think you guys really look after the best interest of the landlord because they have to do it remotely. They have to rely on your insight, rely on your knowledge, your professional capacity to get things done. So there is definitely a fee charge, and that fees are really worth paying for because that is when you can get rid of your anxiety.
Get rid of your anxiety.
And the other anxiety.
Well, through that whole the completion, that phase, we'll get the furnishing done. Once the furnishing is done, we'll get professional photographs done, which we'll also send to the owner, and then we'll use those photos for the marketing to find a tenant.
So you'll be also advising clients about what sort of furniture that they should put in the unit.
Definitely.
Good. So there will be some customized case in that sense.
Definitely.
Okay.
And our advice is always to put a reasonable pack in.
Of course.
Beds,
unless they want to live in themselves, then it's a different story.
Exactly. No TVs, no kitchen packs, anything
No TV.
like that. Maybe kitchen pack because you can differentiate your flat.
Kitchen pack is important.
But I would say stay away from the TVs. Keep that yield in your pocket because it's important that you keep yield in your pocket, right?
Fair enough.
So we hold the client's hand throughout the whole process and update on a regular basis. Make sure that the client is part of the journey and importantly available to answer any questions.
Okay. Then how do you do the tenant selection? How do you do the screening?
The tenant selection, very good question. So in the market at the moment, it's very busy. So we're getting lots and lots of inquiries, and we're trying to pick the best of the bunch.
Right.
Employed professionals, good jobs, students.
Preferably someone who has a job, who has stable income.
Exactly.
Who has credit history.
Exactly.
What else?
First phone call with a tenant.
Right.
Hi tenant, how are you?
Oh yeah.
What are you doing in Manchester? What do you do in London? Get some rapport. The first time you meet the tenant.
Right.
It's about how they're interacting with our team. Do we pick up any red flags? All of this is part of the referencing process of a tenant. We can quite quickly determine where the bad tenants and from their initial inquiry.
From experience, yes, you will know.
And we hone in on the best inquiries that we can get. and then, you know, the phone calls, the viewings, and then when we get the offer and we present the offer to the owner.
Yep. And we present through email or with a direct WhatsApp text, for example.
You know what, it can be phone call, WhatsApp, email. Again, we need to work with the time difference, so we don't want to phone the owner at 11 p.m. But sometimes the owner is actually on the end of the WhatsApp saying, send me the offer.
The owner might be me. But
Exactly. So, look, we need to work with that. And then once the offer's been discussed and accepted, that's when we'll take the tenant
Deposit.
through. We'll take a holding deposit, which is a 1 week's holding deposit.
Okay.
We'll take the tenant through a stringent referencing process. So that's when we do the credit check, the previous landlord check, the employment check.
And what sort of other documents do we need from the tenants? Like bank statement? Do you look at the proof of funds?
So passport. We'll need their previous landlord details, their employment details.
And you will do the calls to verify.
So we actually work with a third party called Good Lord, who's they're actually a tech provider.
Okay.
And they provide a very streamlined process for our tenants and our landlords. So instead of back in the day where we used to have to fax an offer letter,
so old school. Yes.
Everything's done online. You read the terms of the agreement, you submit it back online.
Tech plays a big part in ensuring that you get things done.
I think tech has greatly advanced the efficiency of the process for everybody involved.
Certainly.
Yeah. So it happens a lot quicker. The tenants pay via this platform, so we can check where the tenants are at what stage. So it's very, very handy.
Okay.
And then, once that's all done, 9 out of 10, even more, 9 out of 10 tenants pass that referencing with flying colours. We organise the move-in, the inventory report. So one thing I've seen that's very different to the UK to Asia is that the inventory report in the UK is about 20 to 30 pages. It's like, the door, the lock.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. I was like, what? It's like a contract,
Yeah. So our team does all of that, arranges the move-in, gets the rest of the move-in monies, and then once the tenant's moved in, we do all the utilities, setups.
Yep. So the check-in, check-out process is done by your team, or is it a third-party provider?
It's a third-party provider.
Okay.
At the moment, we're looking to maybe bring that in-house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
But we're also wanting to make sure that we're careful with keeping it as independent as possible between landlord and tenant. But we're also looking to save cost wherever we can and make sure that our offering is. It all forms part of the landlord's fee, right?
Okay.
If there's cost, we need to manage that within a client's cost because we do an all-inclusive fee structure.
Yes.
So anything that we do throughout these processes, one, the person that we're looking after is our client. We're looking at cost management. We're looking at training. Everything to enhance the experience for the client.
Okay.
And the
I think for those who are watching now, and you might be interested to look at the fee structures, I think at the end of the video we will put up our email address and our contact details. You can come to us, then we can send the information accordingly. So time is of the essence. We're going to jump on to the next question. So, okay, Chris, I think it's safe to say that you have a great deal of dealings with Asian landlords. You have many landlords from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, China. So if you can share some tips with us on what is commonly looked upon as important features for first-time landlords when it comes to engaging your service. What kind of expectation do they have from you as a professional lettings and management partner? And how do you manage their properties? I think we addressed that just now in terms of the time zone difference.
Yeah.
And what are the things that you have not covered? What sort of features they are very, very certain about?
Yeah. I think number one is the worry, the concern. So it is the communication and the expectation that they're going to have a smooth experience, which is the primary focus.
Yeah.
Secondly, the most important is it's an investment, right?
Yes.
So
it has to be yielding investment.
It's a yielding investment. So the assistance and the help in order to maximize rent. What can we do to help maximize the rent? Is it furnishing or is it how we present the photos? So to try help the landlord maximize the yield and give the client information of what's happening on the ground in order to minimize the void period, maximize the return.
Exactly.
Not
That's the
sort
priority.
Of, exactly. So not trying to overpromise and say, hey, we can get you if the market price is £1,500 a month, for example. And we try and
you have to be realistic.
You know,
about
we don't want to win business saying, oh, it's going to be you're going to get 1,700.
Not gonna work.
It's about maximizing the yield, minimizing the void. And making sure it's a smooth investment
and
for
keep
the
the
medium
cost down.
Keep the cost low. Exactly. And look, let's be real. There will be costs. There will be costs. There's obviously our fees to manage. There's service charge. There's potential repair costs that might come about, and how we go about repairing those. But I think most owners want to hold the investment for medium to long term. And trying to help that landlord achieve what they want out of the investment without it. So I think a smooth journey throughout the whole experience of rental management, account management. And it's quite different to Malaysia, right? And Singapore, where I think, the agent jumps in, lets it, and then
they buy.
With their money.
The phase is very short in terms of the level of engagement, put it this way. So they were just more like a lettings. Just do the tenants hunting, and then they take them, for viewings and stuff. A bit of negotiations part as well, and then once they collect the first rental and bye. They've got their money, right? They got the money. The first month rental goes to them, which is the law. But I think in terms of being personable, being present for the landlords and the tenants, it's still quite lacking in our market at the moment. When I got into this line of work, got involved in UK property management, I refer clients to our partners in the UK. When I was still very new to the industry back in 2009 and 10, I was impressed. I was very impressed because the level of work involved in all the process of getting a tenants, communication with the landlords, the reporting, the landlord statement, everything it was already quite well done, quite full-fledged back then. And I just compare with my investment in Malaysia, and I feel that we're going to work harder. We need to work harder. I mean that if we have the same practice and culture in Malaysia, I think we can make a lot of money. But I think because of market differences, differences is more coming from the dynamic. And we don't have housing crisis, except we have a bit of overhang or oversupply issue. But because of the undersupply issue in London is so much, it's tightening and stuff. So we do have really dedicated agents who could just maintain and manage the landlords accordingly. So I think it's really because of the market difference, dynamic. So
it's very interesting. So and that's part of our job, to understand the market differences from country to country to country. And every single country has their differences. But you're quite right. Like the process in the UK is. And I often picture it with Settio with a shield, and our clients behind us, and just shielding our clients from all the headache or everything that goes on with property management.
That's a very, very good metaphor, I would say, because you guys are really looking after all the landlords' best interests. Whereas it's still quite lacking in Malaysia, and that's, like I say, we need to have a change in our own industry.
So, but the landlord expectation, I think, is a smooth journey. Maximize rentals, minimize void periods, and try hold on to it for that medium to long term. I think
in terms of the level of engagement or the expectation, so to speak, it's a bit more like what you say is long term. We are looking for more renewals while still engaging the same landlords. I would think in terms of the average, let's say really good lettings and management service, which I have seen. I've got clients who engage the same agents for over 10 years. Over 10 years, and they are still very happy with the same person, and most importantly, they can speak to the same account manager every time. Whereas if we compare with engaging with some other bigger firms, there are lots of turnover, and then you will speak to different account manager all the time. There won't be a very consistent follow-up. So that's the part that, especially Asians like us, will be like, why there is another white guy taking over? Like, but they don't know what happened, beforehand, what happened to my unit. So there was a bit of a loss of touch in that sense.
Yeah.
So you guys would be able to close the gap in terms of follow-up, in terms of having the same person following up the same case throughout the engagement.
That's the aim. But again, with our staff, we've got very high staff retention. But things happen in life,
Of course.
We've had a couple of, when Australia changed the visa from 30 years, I think, to 35.
Yeah.
A couple of people wanted to take advantage of that. And we're like, no, they're good staff members. But you need to allow people to go spread their wings as well. You can't, and as much as we want everybody to stay and it'll make managing the business very easier if everybody stayed in their positions.
Yeah.
But equally, everybody wants to enhance their career. So we need to look at promotions.
You have to be very open-minded to it.
But importantly, I think the point that you mentioned is that there's a customer on the other end of the line, right? And they're on their journey. And all of us are customers at one point in time. Yeah. Or we're customers all the time, right?
Of course we are, yes.
So you need to look at every aspect and clear communication in terms of if a property manager changes or a client or an account manager changes, communicate with your client to who's taking over, and have that level of consistency through the service.
The most importantly is that the communications has to be made beforehand or promptly to inform the client, to inform the landlord that there will be a change of hand in terms of the account manager. So I think that would also mitigate any, I wouldn't say damage, but I think it's more like managing the expectation.
Yeah. We always need to think, and I think this is where some of those property managers that you alluded to get it wrong, is that they start looking at the bottom line of profit.
Yeah.
And as soon as you do that, I think obviously support everybody wants to make a little bit of money. It's important.
Yes.
But when that supersedes the client journey, and I think our core focus and has been and always will be client focus and how we can make that journey awesome for an investor and be like, yes, I've invested in a good market, I've got a good yield. As you say, I've had a property manager for 10 years. Yeah. I haven't had to change. Yeah. They're really looking out for my best interest. That's what you should see.
Yes.
That's what you should see.
All right. So we could go to the last questions, which is quite interesting. We have been sharing this insight with our client as well, but I just want to hear from your point of view as the lettings and management partner.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you have gone through all the high and lows in the market, I'm sure.
Yeah.
During Brexit time, during the pandemic, the COVID.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 wars going on right now. So it has been a very interesting 7 years, I would say. So a lot has changed since then. Especially, in my opinion, is the consumer behavior. And number 2 is the tenants' preferences after the pandemic, and also the landlord expectations. So could you share with us how has the market performed over the years before COVID and after COVID?
Okay. Interesting question, huh?
Yeah,
There's a tester.
Yes. There's no right or wrong answer, but
yeah,
yes,
well,
let's hear.
You know what? The experience of the last 7 years has been interesting. So prior, and it's a really good question. I like the question. Prior to COVID and prior to Brexit, it was quite easy to predict the market. It was you knew what happened July, August, September in the market. Those are the busy markets at that time of the market.
Summer.
Winter's a bit quieter. It's where you can get take stock of what worked, what didn't work, etc. Since Brexit was a curveball that we didn't know what the consequences of it were. Yeah. And also, same as COVID, it came out of nowhere. Yeah. We dealt with that, and I think we're still dealing with the consequences of COVID.
And I'm sure it was a very scary time for you guys as well when we were all in the lockdown. And how do you do the viewing and stuff?
Yeah.
It's
well,
crazy.
we were at the time COVID 2019. We only had 100 properties under management, and we were like, phew! Thank goodness we had 100 because otherwise
you pulled through.
we pulled through. So everybody who was running a business through that time struggled. Retail, whichever business. Some businesses did well, like Peloton and
Yep.
Zoom
My
and
God,
all
Zoom,
of our,
the share price just skyrocketed.
but look, I think the UK market prior to these big events, the market did very, very well in 2010, 2011, 2012. The markets increased in London by 10, 15% in capital values.
Yeah, easily.
The rents did very well. There was still the housing shortage in the UK, which has lasted from however long, what did we say, 2009? You know, that still rings in our ears today.
Oh yes.
Good
old days. We closed like double digits
so
in the property launches.
double
Double digit, easily.
So it's quite good to, and that's 14 years ago, right? So that's 14 years ago. The capital values went up 10, 15%. And now it's been quite interesting to see the market where we had capital gains tax on foreigners in 2015. That's one we didn't mention.
Yeah.
We've had Brexit. We've had COVID. And, you know, we need the sweat towels over our foreheads because it's like, wow, the market's been hit by quite a lot. Like, what to do with it?
Oh, my God.
You know, you've seen the wars which have caused inflation to 14%, interest rates going up to 5%. And
it's
quite good to look at the market and observe the market and be like, hey, where's my property investment at now? Because it must be down 10%.
And everyone has the same question, like, what next? What's next? Like, what you guys are like keeping the interest rate so high and the energy costs surge. Inflation is like what? It was reported as 9-10% back then. We're like, what? What's going on in UK?
Crazy times.
Mental. It was just
crazy
mental.
Times.
Yes.
But you know what? Through all of this, London property prices have stayed fairly stable. And isn't that incredible to look at the market and think that, wow, through all of these sort of like tax changes, the stamp duty changes, the pandemics, that your investment has held its value through tougher years.
Yes.
And then you look at 14 years ago where there was increase in capital values, like markets are always cyclical.
Yeah.
And so when is the upside going to be? Because it has to be soon, right?
Yes.
Because we haven't had an upside for quite a while and the market's been knocked. So, you know, prior to these things, the market was quite easy to predict.
Yeah.
Not in cap values, but in rents.
Yeah.
And it's been, I think, astounding that we've seen London property prices hold the value. And I often see articles where the London property market is compared to the gold standard where it holds its value. And you don't just have Malaysians or Singaporeans investing in the UK. You've got places where I grew up in South Africa where the currency may be similar to ringgit, right?
Yeah.
Where it's not as stable, and owners want to have a harder currency, more stable currency.
Correct, yes.
Where and an asset in a country. That's one of the primary factors. Dubai, Middle East, Saudi, looking to invest in the UK. So you've got all sorts of parts of the world that create that demand in the UK.
Yeah. It's a very international marketplace.
It's a very international market.
Yeah.
So that's in terms of cap values, which I think is an interesting observation that the property prices have held themselves. Manchester, I was just pricing up a client's portfolio. He owns about 4 or 5 units, and over sort of 12 months, he's made like 50K on a unit, and I'm like, what? From
wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's where the Manchester market has actually grown a lot.
Yeah. It actually outperformed the forecast and London.
Yeah. So the cap values in Manchester, despite these sort of setbacks of COVID and Brexit, has done very, very well.
Yes.
And it's quite cool. I think you were in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, right? I don't know whether you saw the restaurants. Flatiron, which is like a steak restaurant, and Blacklock, which are London restaurants, moving to Manchester.
There's a lot of brands that I've seen in London have gone to Manchester. I was like, oh wow, that's a good sign. And I've seen a couple of really nice, cool-looking gastropubs and restaurants, which I didn't see that back in 2018 when I was in Manchester. I would be like,
no, they didn't.
I like Manchester better. People are also quite, very super friendly.
But that's the attraction, right? And that sort of comes back to the question of like, what do we see in the market over the next 5-10 years? And just observe and walking through the cities, you're scratching your head and you see like London restaurants have moved to Manchester, and you're like, wow, this market has progressed so much over the last 6 years.
It has evolved.
But there are things in the macro environment
Yes.
that are challenging, right?
Yes.
You know, when we see 14%, like last year, this time last year, we were tackling 14% inflation, right?
Yeah.
You know, as a business, we need to protect our landlords. So, you know, back to the tenant referencing,
Yes.
we normally ask for their salary to be 2 times the asking rent. So
Okay.
at that time, I made the unpopular decision to say, hey guys, the tenant needs to have 2.5 to 3 times.
Okay.
Because I want the affordability to be higher.
Yeah. And that gives a better, a higher level of protection for the landlords.
Yeah. So, look, I think the next 5 to 10 years, we need to be reactive to macro environments. Like things are changing quite a lot.
Yes.
Again, you know, the shield, clients behind. But I think the UK market is, you know, Manchester's doing very well. And I think there's a lot of upside still to go there. I think Birmingham with the HS2 still needs to complete in 2030.
Yep.
There's a big expansion for the city centre of Birmingham. Just this past week, I saw London City Airport being given more money to expand and do more flights in the day in Canary Wharf. And it's like, you know, there's some cool stuff happening.
Yes, exactly.
So yes, there's macro stuff. Yes, we need to be. You can't change that, right?
You can't change that.
You can't change everything in the world, but you know what's in our control.
Yeah.
In terms of best advising our clients and trying to protect them and trying to accomplish their aims of investing.
Yes. Because you are the bridge. You are gonna bridge between the landlord and the tenants. And I mean, somehow they have to meet at the common ground. Money is one, but I think managing tenants retention is also quite an art for you guys. Managing landlords to stay within the engagement for the next couple of years would also be, you know, another goal to set as well. So thank you for that. I think that sort of close off our episode today. A bit overrun, but it's absolutely amazing sharing from Chris. Me too. I can't stop him as well. So we're gonna wrap up this episode, and there will be more contents to be covered on the next episode, which I don't know when I would make it off online, but stay tuned. So we shall say bye bye for now.
See you. Thanks for having me. Bye bye.